investment discipline at corporate VC. It's been about 5 years since I've started at TDK Ventures as one of the first few employees. I'm reflecting on my learnings in these 5 years because when I started, there was no textbook method on what type of investment discipline we must follow. And I trust after watching this video, many CVCs can benefit from it. So, why should a corporate VC have an investment discipline in the first place? First, a lasting corporate VC must be a good VC and bring strategic value. The operating word here is and. Second, most lasting corporate VCs understand that they need to outlast the business changes like changes in management, changes in CEO, or even changes in investment committee. To ensure the longevity of your CVC, strong financial performance helps you continue backing great entrepreneurs and continue your mission to adding value to society. Strong investment discipline leads to strong investment performance. This allows you to attract the strongest and the brightest people at your CVC to build a great fund, which can outperform all market downturns or internal changes, creating a virtuous cycle. Now that we discussed the why, let's go on to describe the how. But before we get into the operational pieces of the how, it is key to understand the core principles behind investment discipline at TDK Ventures. There are different types of investors. The momentum investor who invests in strict metrics, the founder-focused investors who favors iconic founders, the tech-focused investors who love technology and backs the best technology. At TDK Ventures, we're using a type of value-based investment philosophy, which are based on first principles. We call it the FIT method or first principles-based investment thesis method. This method is thesis-driven, so being prepared forms the central piece of this philosophy and not be subject to fear of missing out, or what we call as FOMO. I want to reiterate, the stronger the investment discipline of an investor, the better chances for strong financial performance. There are 3 steps we usually take to get to the bottom of this first principles-based investment thesis method or to get fit. It's aptly like going to the gym or building a new habit to getting fit. It takes a lot of work, the results are not immediately seen, and yet it is tremendously good for long-term financial health. Step 1 would be to select the right area to deep dive. Step 2 would be to develop the right KPIs to evaluate startups. And step 3 would be to draw the arcs of the future to identify the king of the hill. I'll explain these 3 steps in theory first and then share with you a real-world example, so stay tuned. Selecting the right topic relevant to your CVC can be tricky due to abundance of options. So our guidance here is, first, to select an area that is poised to grow but not mature. Second is to find incentives where incumbents are partially or fully misaligned. This gives startups a chance to compete in a limited time or gives a small window of opportunity. Third is to ask why now. There's got to be a catalyst externally that could drive venture-style growth. Such a catalyst can come in the form of regulations or macroeconomic situations or even a technological breakthrough, for example. The key here on the why now is to justify how a startup can achieve about 100 million in revenue in about 5 to 7 years. Once you select the right area, spend time with as many entrepreneurs in the same space or adjacent spaces. Your job is to find the KPIs to compare individual startups across their technology stack, product stack, commercial validation, and business model. Startup founders are great at one thing, it's pitching. So the key here is to focus on what founders are not telling you in their competitive landscape KPIs and to parse these out as a smart investor. After you have the KPI comparisons, carefully draw arcs of the future on where you believe the market will go and draw the end state of the companies to meet that arc. Sometimes certain tech stacks can be strong, but the team's go to market can be weak, or the product is strong, but scale up has challenges. Once you have these arcs, you can predict what we call as the king of the hill, which is a future potential market leader in about 5 to 7 years in that space. Please note, many startups may not be the king of the hill today, but if you pick the right arc, you might be able to find the future potential market leader. Let me give you a concrete example of an investment we made that followed the FIT process. I met Ascend Elements, then called Battery Resourcers, in 2019 when the company had less than 10 people. This is a picture I have when I met the CEO first time, Michael Cronley. And late last year, the company raised over $500 million in a Series D and won the largest DOE grant from the bipartisan infrastructure bill at a whopping $480 million. More importantly, the company is stable and booking solid revenues today, and now a unicorn. Back to the FIT method, now with the example of Ascend. Step one was to choosing the right area. In the battery value chain, we could have chosen any part to deep dive and got lost in it because there are cathodes, there are anodes, there are electrolytes, there's cell making, there's pack making, mining, end of use, EV OEM, all of these critical parts of the value chain. But the question is, which one of these would produce venture style returns in the 2019 timeframe? That was the key one we were asking. So let's apply our FIT algorithm here. Selecting an area that is poised to grow but not mature. Gigafactories then were not widely online in the United States or in North America, so no feedstock for recycling was available at that time. But we knew that this area was poised to grow, with many OEMs following Tesla, like GM, Ford, etc. Second is to finding the right incentives where incumbents are partially or fully misaligned. The ecosystem at that time was very complex. There were shredders, there were compilers, there were materials makers, there were cell makers, and there were OEMs, which were actually the decision makers for mass adoption of EVs. So the usual incumbents like BASF, Umicore, or even shredders or collectors didn't have a very straightforward case to make massive capex investments to return materials back into the supply chain. Third was asking why now. North America had the best EV company, Tesla, at the time, and probably even now, but there was no supply chain security. This made the case for recycling or upcycling a clear venture opportunity. Step two was to finding the right KPIs to evaluate. For developing the right KPIs, first we must understand the state of the art, the advantages and disadvantages of each of these methods. Pyrometallurgy was the most traditional methods, and direct recycling was the most recent. So right off the bat, we knew one had high technical maturity and the other doesn't. When we interviewed multiple startups and stakeholders, there were other significant learnings that helped us narrow down the right KPIs to evaluate. First was to reduce the cost of the battery, the startup must sell kilotons of material, meaning economies of scale became the core of a venture scale business in recycling. But to have economies of scale, one must have a feedstock advantage. But this advantage came from a fundamental edge in unit economics, which can only be delivered using advanced hydrometallurgical techniques or direct recycling that were commercially ready for designing into batteries. So economies of scale and technology advantage to deliver the best unit economics to the OEM was a key KPI that we were looking for. Step three was to finding the king of the hill. Mapping the technology arc, product arc, scale-up arc, and business arc can be very tricky. Many times, technologies do not scale to strong products. Many products don't scale to manufacturing, and many great scaled-up products do not scale to being good businesses. That said, when we reviewed all others, especially comparing Ascend to direct recycling methods, which had compelling unit economics on the technology side, for Ascend, we've thought that the third party validation on the cathode performance made it the most advanced for design in to OEMs or battery suppliers. The cathode precursors, or PCAM, or cathode active materials, had unit economics that grew with time as they took lithium out and had plans of selling lithium carbonate as a byproduct. We also saw a strong operational team with a working 500 ton per annum plant. Ascend had also built the right team with the right operational experts and battery experts. This arc on the scale up maturity for a brand new technology also helped us build conviction. The biggest punchline came in the form of Ascend's business model. Ascend had planned building plants to first scale their black mass sales, which helped them build revenue while they recycled cathode precursors and recycled cathodes were being designed in. This meant they did not have to wait for long design-in cycles for cathodes for booking revenue or wait for some regulation to come online. In other words, Ascend showed us a path in 5 to 7 years that their worst case scenario was that they would be a good recycling companies with reasonable margins, and their best case scenario was to literally upend the material supply chain by becoming a PCAM or a CAM producer to disrupt the entire industry. This is how we got convinced that they could be the king of the hill, a potential market leader in about 5 to 7 years. Despite successes in calling the right king of the hills, I do want to discuss some challenges with the FIT method. First is that for the FIT method to work well, you must have a few companies that are operating in the same space or in adjacent spaces. So catching the true trailblazers in a field might be a tad bit hard. Second, sometimes because the FIT method requires you to be thorough in building your investment thesis before investing, entrepreneurs could view you as being slow. Third, sometimes building the arc of technology stack product scale up can be really good, but execution can be poor, even with solid management teams. The FIT method cannot predict the quality of execution from amazing teams, and such amazing teams often outperform all of our predictions. Fourth, many times we spend tremendous amount of time developing this fit-based thesis and end up not finding any good investment opportunities. Some investors might find this a massive opportunity cost with this method. The key here is to understand where and when to make the right exceptions. To quote Professor Achyuta Damodaran, we need to understand what's possible, what's plausible, and what's probable. Ultimately, the three benefits we see from the FIT method are to help generating outsized returns, helping build a targeted investment portfolio that is focused, and to help build a long-lasting value to your CVC. Adopting FIT can avoid being tunnel vision and making an investment because we saw one good startup opportunity that came through our network where we haven't been prepared. It also avoids investing in an area based on hype. It also avoids making investment decisions with poor investment thesis rationales, and also avoids choosing areas with landmines. Most importantly, strict investment discipline often provides the deepest insights and raises the floor on investing principles at your CVC. Thank you very much.